Hi, who am I? I'm Faith in Literacy here for part 2 of high quality instruction for deaf and hard of hearing students in reading and writing. This part, I'm going to discuss the key components of high quality reading instruction for deaf and hard of hearing students. In part 1, I discussed a brief history of deaf education here in the United States. Now, high quality reading instruction for deaf and hard of hearing students, it requires a multifaceted approach that takes into account the unique linguistic, cognitive, and social needs of these learners. So, what are some of the key components to high quality reading instruction for deaf and hard of hearing students? The first is early language exposure. For deaf and hard of hearing students, early language exposure is critical for literacy development. Research shows that children who are exposed to a fully accessible language, whether it's ASL or a spoken language, those kids develop a stronger set of reading skills. Early language exposure facilitates the development of phonological awareness, vocabulary, and grammar, which are fundamentally important for reading. Educators should ensure that deaf and hard of hearing students have early and consistent access to language. For children who use ASL, this means incorporating sign language into early childhood education. It also means that you're ensuring that families have access to sign language and sign language resources. For students with cochlear implants or hearing aids, early intervention services and auditory training can support their spoken language development. Number 2, the bye-bye approach. Bye-bye means what? Bilingual, bicultural approach. The bye-bye approach recognizes the value of ASL as a fully accessible language for many deaf and hard of hearing students, while also acknowledging the importance of literacy in English. In a bye-bye classroom, ASL is used for instruction, and English is taught as a second language through reading and writing. This approach respects the cultural and linguistic identity of deaf and hard of hearing students and allows them to develop literacy skills in ASL and English, both languages. In a bye-bye classroom, teachers use ASL to explain reading concepts such as vocabulary, sentence structure, and comprehension strategies. Students learn to read English through exposure to written text, but they have the support from ASL for understanding. This approach can help to kind of bridge that gap between ASL and English literacy. And doing this allows students to draw on their strengths in both languages. Number 3, visual phonics, or VP. Now, today, some people say that ASL, since they don't have those short words like and, the, is, are, that it's not important to teach deaf children those words. I don't agree with that. Phonological awareness, or PA, is a critical component of reading development. And it's for hearing deaf or hard of hearing students. But I know that it can be challenging for deaf and hard of hearing students who may have limited access to spoken language. So visual phonics is a system that represents the sounds of a spoken language through hand signals and visual cues. Now, visual phonics is not a sign language. It is not ASL. It uses visual cues. And this approach is multisensory, and it helps deaf and hard of hearing students develop phonological awareness by linking visual and kinesthetic information to the sounds of English. Now, visual phonics can be used alongside other literacy instruction strategies. It cannot be used alone. And it's going to be used to help deaf and hard of hearing students understand the relationships between sounds and letters. By making phonics instruction more accessible, visual phonics can support decoding skills and improve reading fluency. Number 4, teaching vocabulary. Explicit vocabulary instruction is so important because vocabulary knowledge is a strong predictor of reading comprehension. But deaf and hard of hearing students often have smaller vocabularies than their hearing peers due to limited exposure to language, especially a spoken language. Therefore, explicit vocabulary instruction is essential for deaf and hard of hearing students. Teachers should focus on teaching both high frequency words, those short words like the and content specific vocabulary. Vocabulary instruction should be multimodal. So you're incorporating visual aids, ASL signs, and written definitions to help students understand and retain new words. Additionally, repeated exposure to vocabulary in different contexts can reinforce understanding and support reading comprehension. See you in part 3.